Some years ago, I visited a Somali-owned grocery store in Leicester. There were people milling around. It sold the usual stuff: bread, canned food, fresh fruit and vegetables. I was there to interview the owner. He said, let's do the interview upstairs. And as I was ascending the stairs, I couldn't help but notice there were a room full of chaps just chatting away. The interview was really interesting. I got a lot of information about how the company started, and often in companies like that start through the efforts of their friends and families. The community supported it, and he had a real determination to make a success of it. It's the usual entrepreneurial story for people of colour. But curiosity got the better of me. Who are those people downstairs? They're from the local community, he responded. Well, what are they doing there? They come here for help, finding jobs, finding doctors, finding schools for their kids, filling in forms. That really struck me. Now tell me, how do I make sense of that business? Is it a fairly pedestrian, run-of-the-mill, ordinary grocery store, as I was inclined to conclude after my interview? Or is it an unofficial community centre that just happens to sell milk? A resource that is absolutely indispensable to that community and is there because mainstream institutions look away or do not care. That wasn't the first time I'd experienced that disconnect. I saw it right at the start of my career when I was studying Asian entrepreneurs in the clothing sector for my PhD. At that time, I came across a book called Industrial Relations in Small Firms. That was on the clothing sector too. And as I read it, I got increasingly irritated. He was writing off businesses like my dad. He was saying that businesses like my father's, he was a clothing manufacturer at the time, were helpless and exploitative. But I'd grown up in the family business, in the clothing business. I'd seen it up close and personal. That wasn't my experience. I'd spent school holidays on the factory floor. I cut patterns. I dropped off material at the homes of home workers. I saw my dad negotiating in broken English with boorish suppliers. But he got by. In fact, he did more than get by. He employed others from the local community who couldn't find work. He showed me and my siblings what the life of an entrepreneur was really like. He provided employment for the local community. That business provided a lifeline for my father, who came here to this country, like so many others, with no job, no networks, and no special access to any kind of employment. And it provided him with an opportunity that he grasped with both hands and made his way in UK PLC, creating economic value and social value and contributing, as entrepreneurs do, to integration. The real question is not whether these businesses succeed or fail. No, the real question is who gets to tell their story. Later on in my career, I faced that question in another guise. Who defines business success? We partnered with an organisation called Citizens UK, a community organisation, on a project to support migrant entrepreneurs in some of the most disadvantaged areas of this great city, Birmingham. We were going to provide support to businesses who never used assistance and the chambers of commerce or different agencies, and they were ignored by academics. We faced a choice. We could employ a business advisor, someone with credentials and experience, to go into these firms, diagnose a problem, and tell them what they were doing wrong. Or we could employ a community organizer who wouldn't tell them what they were doing wrong. Rather, their job would be to connect and to really understand and engage with these businesses, to build relationships with these businesses. We chose the community organizer. So for the next year, we didn't study these businesses, we worked with them. We didn't extract data from them like most researchers would do, we partnered with them. And we didn't impose solutions, we co-created, developed them together. And at the end of the year, we were surprised, or in the vernacular, gobsmacked, because 295 business owners started using business support. Support that they had never been exposed to before, support that they would never go anywhere near. We were impressed at ourselves, but we were more impressed when 12 of those entrepreneurs came up to us a month or so afterwards and said, "Thank you very much, but we don't need your services anymore. We're going to form our own business leaders group. We want to be at the tables where decisions are made about policy, not just on the receiving end of policy. We want to shape the kind of interventions that we need in our community." They wanted to speak for themselves. They wanted to speak truth to power. And that's exactly what they did. One of them said to me, "We feel valued now. It's great to be at the table. We feel really seen." I'm really pleased that that project still continues. I'm even more delighted that project, which was in the back streets of Newtown and Spark Hill and Ladywood, that project, speaking to those individual entrepreneurs, that project was cited and studied as an exemplar for grassroots innovation by Nesta, the Science and Technology Foundation. That's what happens when you allow communities to tell their stories. You don't simply get different parties sharing information. You create different kinds of partners. The Birmingham example succeeded on its own terms. And then NatWest Bank came along. They said to us, "We've been watching what you're doing. We're really interested in your work. We know that you do a lot of work on ethnic minority entrepreneurship. We want to understand ethnic minority businesses better. Can you write us a report?" I pondered and said no. Largely because I wanted to be the only one in the universe that said no to a bank. I said, no, let's try something different. Rather than write a report, let's work together to create a document that will really change, that will really affect change in the community we want to influence. It was a sliding doors moment. Fortunately, they said yes. And for the next 2 years, we worked together. My centre, their bank, together we worked sharing ideas, sharing insights, sharing our observations as the research progressed. And we discovered something remarkable. Ethnic minority entrepreneurs in the UK contribute 25 billion to the economy. That's really significant. But perhaps even more stunning is that if we removed the barriers that ethnic minority entrepreneurs face, that contribution could increase fourfold to 100 billion. A huge increase. And guess what? The key to unlocking that economic opportunity was partnership. We published a report with that finding. But publishing a report alone doesn't create change. So for the next 2 years, we worked together as a team with other partners to implement the findings of the report, something very few researchers actually do. NatWest itself invested significantly in developing new initiatives to support black and ethnic minority entrepreneurs. The mayors of West Yorkshire and West Midlands agreed to adopt our recommendations, and business support organisations from Northern Ireland and professional bodies also agreed to work with us. We were thrilled. But we were even more pleased when a few months ago, actually a bit longer than that, 6 months ago, the Department for Business and Trade, the government, actually knocked on our door. And they said they want to work with us too. They want to become our official implementation partner. And this was sort of, for me, incredibly poignant. And it was poignant because it was the micro relationships with the likes of the Somali grocer, the kind of relational, the kind of engagement of mutual respect, the partnership with that community. That way of engaging communities that was being scaled and now being adopted by the government. And I was delighted a few months ago when the government launched their small business strategy that our centre and our mode of working was mentioned 3 times in that strategy. So the point is that there's a real difference between research that sits on a shelf and research that affects change. If you engage your partners, you work with them, you don't stop at the stage where you hand over the report. That's when it just starts. You stay, you implement, and you collaborate to make it work. So the approach to change that I've articulated is a little different. It's a little different because it starts with a question: what's already working? Not what's wrong. That's an insight that applies way beyond black and ethnic minority entrepreneurs. It's asking us to reframe, rethink how we create change itself. Tomorrow, when you find yourself in rooms where decisions are made, look at the people around you, listen to them, respect them. But more importantly, look for the voices who aren't in the room. Invite them in. not to tick a box, but to engage them respectfully and involve them in the decision-making process. This matters. It really matters, because when we ignore the work that communities are doing, we say to those communities that actually their efforts, their assets, aren't worth anything. Their ingenuity, their creativity isn't important. And we miss the opportunity to build on the amazing work, the amazing strengths that communities have. "35 years ago, I was faced with the question, who gets to tell your story? I think most of us know that the people who know what's working are the people doing the work. So maybe the time is right now for us to listen, really listen.